Hello, this is Shannon with Waffle Flower, and welcome to the second video in our color wheel series. In this video, we will use one of the color wheels we created in the previous video to discover harmonious color relationships and how these relationships can help us in our card making. All the color wheels I'm using in this video were created in the first color wheel video. If interested, you can find the link to that video in the description below. Let's dive right in. The color wheel is an invaluable tool. This is because it displays the relationships between the colors and helps artists discover harmonious color combinations or schemes. There are 6 types of harmonious color schemes. The first one we'll be discussing today is monochromatic. Monochromatic is a color scheme using just one hue from the color wheel, for example, green. But this is not as limiting as it may sound. A monochromatic scheme does include all the tints, tones, and shades of that hue as well. I'm arranging 4 color wheels that explore tints, tones, and shades. The first wheel is a combination and shows one tint, one tone, and one shade of each hue. However, the second wheel shows only tints, the third only tones, and the fourth only shades. So for example, if I choose a green monochromatic color scheme, I could incorporate any of the colors from the green hue sections of these 4 color wheels into my project. Let's move on to the next color scheme, complementary. Complementary colors are 2 colors directly opposite each other on the color wheel, like yellow and violet. The more distant the colors are on the color wheel, the more contrast between them. Therefore, complementary color schemes offer lots of contrast and vitality. You can use tints, tones, and shades of your complementary pairs if you want to reduce some of that contrast. And when complementary colors are mixed, they neutralize each other, producing a duller color. Next is split complementary. Split complementary is a variation of the complementary color scheme. In fact, it incorporates a hue and the 2 colors on either side of that hue's complement. This smaller circle that we stamped from the color wheel stamp set and added to our color wheel can be turned and directed to a particular color, making it easy to find split complementary color schemes as well as a few others. For example, here's one split complementary: red, blue-green, and yellow-green. Next is analogous. Analogous color schemes use colors that are adjacent to each other on the color wheel. These color schemes can incorporate at least 2 hues, but no more than 5 on the color wheel. Red-violet, violet, and blue-violet would be an analogous color scheme. I often find myself using analogous color schemes. These combos have low contrast and create serene designs. They also blend and mix well together, making them a great choice for a variety of techniques like ink blending or ink smushing. Next is Triad. A triadic color scheme uses 3 colors equally spaced from each other on the color wheel. Again, we can use the center circle to help us identify a triadic color scheme. Red, yellow, and blue is a classic triad. These color schemes are also high contrast, but more balanced than a complementary color scheme. Even with less saturated versions of your hues, this color scheme is quite vibrant. When working with this type of scheme, try letting one color dominate and use the other 2 as accents. And our last harmonious color scheme is Tetrad. There are 2 types of tetradic color schemes, rectangle and square. You can identify them here on our center circle. An example of a rectangle tetrad is blue-violet, red-orange, yellow-orange, and blue-green. Both tetradic schemes use 4 colors arranged into 2 complementary pairs. An example of a square tetrad is blue-violet, red, yellow-orange, and green. Again, both square and rectangle tetrads are comprised of 4 colors arranged into 2 complementary pairs. These color schemes offer plenty of possibilities for variation and work best if you let one color be dominant. Now that we have learned the 6 different color harmonies, I thought it would be helpful to see them all laid out to better understand all the possible color combinations and to see the colors side by side. I've already stamped a grid out using the Color Swatches stamp set. I have also labeled each section. My sections include complementary, split complementary, triad, tetrad square, and tetrad rectangle. I did not include monochromatic because that is just a single hue, or analogous because those schemes can range from 2 to 5 hues and are already next to each other on the color wheel. I'm now going to fill out this grid by stamping the same distress inks that I used to create the color wheel that you see on the left, using the color swatches for InkPad stamp set. Of course, as long as I have the same colors, I could use Distress Oxides instead of Distress Inks. The colors will just be a little less vibrant if I do. But I do have a little trick using Versamark that will help me get great impressions with my Distress Inks. With the help of my color wheel, I have found all the combos for my grid and have written them down. I actually did this before I created the grid, so I would know how many swatches I needed to stamp in each section. I'm now ready to stamp. First I'll ink my stamp up in Versamark ink, then I'll stamp it onto some scrap paper. Then I will ink it up with my first Distress ink, which is Candied Apple. The residual Versamark helps the Distress ink to stick better and results in a smoother impression. Using my list as a guide, I will stamp all the color schemes that contain red, which in this case is my Candied Apple. And again, I found all these color schemes by referencing the color wheel I created with Distress Inks. I just kept rotating that center circle around until I had written down every split complementary, Triad, and Tetrad combo there was. Once I've finished with my red, I will move on to my next Distress ink color, which is Lucky Clover. Just like before, I will ink my stamp up once with Versamark ink, then stamp it onto some scrap paper, and then ink it up with my Distress ink. I will continue to work my way through each one of my colors until I've stamped all the color combos on my list. Jumped ahead and I'm just finishing my chart now with my red violet, which is Seedless Preserves. It is amazing to me how much information can be derived from the color wheel. From our 12 hues, there are 6 complementary pairs, 12 split complementary combos, which you see me pointing out here. There are also 4 Triad combos, 3 Tetrad square combos, and 6 Tetrad rectangle combos. And again, this chart does not show the monochromatic or analogous color schemes, so there are even more possibilities than what you see here. So let's put into action some of what we have learned today. I've decided to color a flower from the Bouquet Builder 2 stamp set. I know I want to watercolor it with Distress Inks, so I could use my Distress Ink color wheel to help me pick a harmonious color scheme. When picking a harmonious color scheme, I think it's helpful to pick a key color first. This is one color you know you want in your color scheme. In this case, I will pick red or Candied Apple. I can then turn the wheel and find a split complementary, a Triad, or a Tetrad combo that I like that includes red. Another way you can organize this information is to create key color charts. Again, I used the color wheel to help me find all the color harmonies that include red, and then made this chart. So if I prefer to see my color combos with the colors side by side, I can just open this book and find the key color page for whatever hue I have chosen. This is not necessary. The color wheel already has all this information on it. A key color chart is just another way to see all the information contained on the color wheel. I have chosen this split complementary combo for my flower, which is red, blue-green, and orange, or in this case, Candied Apple, Peacock Blue, and Carved Pumpkin. This is why I like making my own color wheels with the coloring media that I own. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of picking my color combos because I've already assigned specific inks, markers, paints, colored pencils, or whatever my coloring media may be to each one of the 12 hues on the color wheel. All I have to do is turn my wheel or consult my key color charts to find a combo that I like and then grab the corresponding ink, marker, paint, or colored pencil for that combo's hues. Plus, if I'm able to match the 12 hues to my coloring media without having to mix any colors, I never have to worry about recreating that same color that's on the coloring wheel. So I'm just finishing up my flower with my 3 Distress Inks. I think it turned out really pretty. The red really pops next to the blue-green and the orange serves as a nice accent. Now let's try a different color harmony and combine it with stamping. This is another advantage of using Distress Inks for my color wheel. Not only can I watercolor with them, but I can also stamp and even use them for many other techniques like ink smushing or ink blending, and always have my color wheel there as a guide for picking color combos. So this time I'm going to try this Triad, which is yellow orange, red violet, and blue green, or wild honey, seedless preserves, and peacock feathers. I already have my stamp from the Plaid Play stamp set mounted onto an acrylic block. First, I'll ink up the stamp with Wild Honey. Triads can be quite vibrant, so I want to incorporate some of the tints of these three colors to help tone down the intensity. Luckily, there is a very simple stamping technique that'll help me create my tints, and that is second generation stamping. Once inked up, I'll then stamp my stripe, and then without cleaning my stamp, I'll stamp my stripe a second time. This will produce a lighter version of Wild Honey, or a tint. Now I'll just repeat this process for the other two ink colors. I just love how these colors look together, and this is a color combo that I would have never tried if I hadn't used my color wheel to help me pick a color scheme. And that's actually what I think is my biggest takeaway from this whole color theory study. I realized that I was using the same color schemes over and over again. I'm really excited to challenge myself and to try many of these new color combos, and I think basic stamps like stripes or shapes is a great way to try them, especially if you incorporate tints via second generation stamping. Now I'll try one more color harmony at Tetrad. This time I'll use a color wheel that I created with my Copics. I've chosen a square Tetrad, which includes red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and violet. And again, to tone down the intensity, I'll use tints in addition to the hues. The tints are simply lighter Copics which I have selected when I colored my wheel. To keep it simple, I've decided to play with stripes again. I have the color and its tint in Copic marker form on my work surface, and I'll simply make stripes with all the markers using a ruler. Again, this is the color combo I would have never thought to try if it weren't for the color wheel, and I just love the results. And here's a card where I stamped a similar but different Tetrad just to show how you could use these stripes for a card. And last, I'd like to share a couple cards that I created in the past that use some different color harmonies. First is this card that I created with the Enveloper Hug stamp set. This is an example of a monochromatic color scheme. I simply stamped the image in Salty Ocean, which is my blue on the color wheel, and then reactivated the stamped ink with a damp brush to create some tints. Next is this pull tab card. This card is an example of a complementary color scheme. Except for only tiny amounts of yellow, this card is primarily made up of tints and tones of the complementary pair, red and green. And last, I have a few cards using my go-to color harmony, Analogous. This first card uses yellow, green, green, and blue-green. As mentioned earlier, analogous color schemes are great for techniques. This is because they are close to each other on the color wheel, making them blend, mix, and layer nicely together, reducing your chances of getting muddy colors. And this last card uses an analogous scheme of green, blue-green, blue, blue-violet, and violet, and is also an example of ink blending with an analogous combo. And that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video on color relationships and color harmonies. In our next color wheel video, we will focus on color mixing and primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. For more info on the products I used in this video, please visit Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.